Yeah. Ooh. Bring it back now. Yeah. We're back with another episode. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your time. Welcome back. No mai hoki mai to another episode of the Sick As podcast. You're back with your boy Troy, the only one who is the Sick As podcast guy, and you should know that by now because my voice has been gracing your airways for the last 3 weeks just by myself, and usually I go alternating with a guest and then with not a guest because it's a solo, and that's usually what happens when it is a solo. Just some things have been happening. You know, I went back home for a little bit, and if you can see, and I kind of alluded to it in the last episode, your boy is rocking the party in the back, business in the front. And it's been interesting. It's been very, very interesting having this new haircut, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. But anyway, we have a little bit of a poem here. Waking up before the sun meets my eyes. Place my feet on the ground and feel grateful to be alive. Take a deep first breath, and as my chest expands wide, exhale and start the day on the chase for my why. It's my purpose. That gives me direction and drive. It's the wind in my sail. It's the reason I'll survive. It's the backbone to my life. It's the literal spine. And without it, my will just bends over and dies. When I ever doubt myself, I reach deep to find the shoulders I stand on, the shoulders of giants. When it's negative thoughts and talk in my mind, I show it my love and say it'll all be fine. Because no matter how hard I try, I'll be able to float, but never able to fly. And that's just a nice little reminder, you know, that when you have a purpose, when you have something that you're striving for every single day, you know, you do feel like you're going to be able to get out of whatever it is that you're doing. No matter how deep into it you get, no matter, you know, if you always have that drive, if you always have that purpose, if you always have that why that everyone talks about, you know, every Kobe Bryant inspirational thing, there's talking about your purpose, he's talking about your why. But it really is that. If you have a clear goal, if you have a clear aim on what that is to be, then all your actions will go towards those goals, and all your actions will kind of make, you know, if you're going towards the things that you value in life, you'll always find your way out. And I do like that last line. No matter how hard I try, I'll be able to float, but never able to fly. So, you know, we're never going to be able to get away from all the negative self-talk, all the negative, all the haters. We're never going to be able to get away from that. It's just the human condition. But you will be able to float. You will be able to manage it. You will be able to make it a bit more tolerable. And that's what it's all about. You know, being able to exist in harmony with everything. And that's with everything going on. Because imagine if we didn't have that struggle. Imagine if everything was just so easy. You can't. Because it'd just be boring. Right? Think about school holidays when you were a child. It was boring. You wanted to go to school. The one thing that you hated was going to school. Then once you got school taken away from you, you actually realized, oh man, I did like school. You like school because you get to go eat lunch and be with your friends and obviously get an education. But anyway, we are back with another episode of the Sick As podcast. Let's get it. So what is up, my little pigs and piglets? Yeah, so basically, I've got a mullet, if you couldn't tell, or a mullet, as I like to say, because I'm a bit upper class, you know what I'm saying? And it's been getting it. And just, I think I knew it was about time to get it. I spoke about my reasons for getting rid of my hair and the heaviness that I started to feel with it. But I think the big one was that a lot of other people were a bit more, you know, caught up in my hair than I was. Not literally, like not a bunch of people getting matted up in my hair. I mean, a lot of people who'd said, but your hair's so nice. But, you know, all other people who had the reasons for me to keep my hair was exactly the reason why I needed to get rid of it. I had a lot of other people having way more input into a big part of my life than I did, you know, and if I was to let that kind of control the decision that I wanted to make for this, then I think that kind of goes against everything that I've been talking about, which has been, you know, trying to find myself and trying to let myself dictate a lot of what I want, you know, what's going to make me happy. And I'm not saying that a mullet was going to make me happy, but boy, oh boy, has it. You know, in the 5 years of having my long hair, so let me tell you this, when I was hopping on the plane, there was a guy, you know, the guy who comes on just to, say, oh yeah, we've got a left wing repair, and the raindrop wiper is working, the window wiper, sorry, we've got new coolant in the radiator, you know, that person, and they come off and they have the headset on and they're just walking off with their high vis. This guy literally stopped, took his headset off, said, oh, Chibro, that's a mean mullet. And then fist bumped me. And then I have never had anyone stop in their path to tell me that my hair was nice. Like, no random people. I've had people that I know, obviously, tell me about my hair, but no one has ever stopped to tell me about a hairstyle. And I just knew I'm rocking it. I am rocking it. And I think it looks a lot better. So shout out to my boy Tooth or Ken the Barber, the only person I trusted to do my hair. So if you are in Wellington and you need to get someone to do your hair, please hit up my boy Ken the Barber. He is amazing. He does. He's got a few exciting things in the circle at the moment. But he does mobile. Mobile as in he moves around to different people on the weekends, but he also is a full-time barber at Giovanni Men's. So if you are in Wellington and you need to get your hair did, he is the boy. He's also doing the All Blacks and Hurricanes and whatnot as well. He's a good dude. So yeah, anyway, that's me. It's part of the new me. I've gone my first week at work with it, and the comments still keep coming. And I think because when you're in academia, you're meant to look a certain way. Me just having tattoos, being brown, being young, having a mullet, wearing shorts and hoodies is so against kind of like the traditional notions of what it means to be an academic. And I think I kind of thrive knowing that I'm not looking like, I don't look the part, but my work speaks for itself. And I think that's where it needs to be. And obviously I'm going to be respectful and dress up if I need to go to different events and stuff, but I think I've become a lot more confident in myself. I've become a lot more comfortable that I belong here. And having that belonging doesn't matter whether you have a haircut like this or not. And to be honest, you know what? A lot of people unknowingly have mullets just because like they get, that crystal haircut that older women get. But like, people be getting it, and it's short up top and it's long at the back, and they just don't call it a mullet. But a lot of people do have mullets. So anyway, there's an energy that comes with it, and I do feel very positive. I don't have any regret. I don't have any, I think losing the hair, I actually do genuinely feel lighter. So that's just a little bit of that. And then just a reminder, just something that I come back every single week, and I'm probably going to give you more facts as this goes. To all my Indigenous folk, the people who are saying, stop shoving te reo down my throat. We live in New Zealand, not Aotearoa. All those people. The fuckasses. Those people. Have them know that, okay, you don't want te reo being shoved down your throat. There was literally legislation. There was literally a Native Schools Act. There was literally violence ensued amongst Māori speakers who were told that they need to assimilate and speak English, right? We are speaking more Māori because it is an official language of this country that we call Aotearoa. If we were shoving te reo Māori down your throat, we could actually do it with violence, and we can make you scared to do anything else because you may have that sort of violence put on you. So, next time someone says, stop shoving te reo Māori down our throat, just say, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realise that we strapped you for speaking a language that you were most comfortable in, that spoke a lot about who you were. I'm sorry that we had to make rules and legislation and really punish you if you were to speak the language that you were most comfortable with. And then see if they have the same feeling. To be honest, most of them probably would, but it's just hilarious that now the shoe is on the other foot and it's very, very passive. They are starting, there's this thing called white fragility, and if you're not aware of that, have a little read, type it in and see about it. Anyway, so that's that. I think I'm going to do that every single week just to keep reminding you just how much the stupid minority of this country starts to make it look like speaking Māori is actually an issue and that it is dividing this country. No, it's not. To your small-ass minority, maybe it is, and it's blowing your stupid little minds, but at the same time, it is nice to see that other people are kind of climbing on board and starting to use more reo without actually being discouraged because of those idiots. So, with that in mind, and with this new energy that I have, I thought it was a really good time to start talking about how we can stop negative self-talk. So I'm the king of using negative self-talk on myself, and I think I've spoken about it in nearly every single episode that I come across, and it's just, I know that I say the meanest stuff to myself, and I've never said it to anyone else, unless you're a stupid ass who thinks that we're shoving te reo down your throat. But that's actually like, that's just pure idiotness. That's pure moronic sort of stuff. But what I mean was, the types of things that I say about myself, I would never say to anyone. I wouldn't even say it to my worst enemies. The way that I speak about myself, the drill sergeant in me who just, always tells me I'm not enough and makes me believe that I'm not enough. And it's from unfounded fact. It's not from anything that's happening around me. It's just, I believe that in myself. My self-efficacy is low. And then I start to say the really, really nasty stuff about myself. And I know that everyone goes through this. And I mean, I'm not saying I'm an amazing person and I'm accomplished and all of that sort of stuff, but I do have this, and I know that a lot of people find solace in the fact that, they see me as this spectacular person with the sickest mullet in the world. But at the same time, like, I still have the same doubts that a lot of you have. And some of the most put together people, like when you do hear them and you allow them the opportunity to speak and talk about themselves, they have the negative self-talk as well. And I think this came up when it was a book actually that my boy Ricky Persico, so shout out to my boy Ricky, in the podcast episode that I had with him, he was talking about the book called Chatter, and I think it's by Ethan Cross, and I checked it out, and just going through that book, there were so many things. You're talking about negative self-chatter, you're talking about the consequences of that, but then also trying to get out of that. So what I want to do is just quickly, if you find yourself in those moments, what is it that you can do to actually get yourself out of it? So negative self-talk, know this, the first thing that I'll remind you of everything, all of these negative feelings that we have, you are not alone in experiencing that. And I think, and I hope that one little thing gives you just a little bit of hope to know that some people are getting out of it. You are not a weirdo for feeling that way. You are not a weirdo for talking to yourself that way. It is the human condition, and I think we need to normalize that experience of negative emotions. Not normalize it to say that we should just embrace it and it should come a little bit more, but I just mean normalize it as in when it does come up, be okay with expressing it. Be okay with knowing that it's happening to you, and you don't need to spiral. You just need to acknowledge that it is happening. Negative self-talk in itself, I don't think it's inherently bad. I think it's the way that we speak to ourselves. It's not inherently bad, but it's not inherently good. It is when those thoughts start to, nourish into something else. You start to feed it with different things. It's like a cancer. It's like anything that then, takes the blood supply, takes the nutrients that there's providing for the rest of your body and starts to fuel that instead. And then you start to get into rumination. You start to get into extra stress. You start to get into extra worry about different things. Because remember what I keep saying. All of these emotions that we have, the negative emotions, they're not inherently bad. And I know a lot of people say, like, stress, if you have stress, it actually leads to cardiovascular death and all that sort of stuff. Yes, to an extent, but everything has a dose response, right? So stress in its small little parts. So the reason why we have stress is so that you can get rid of any immediate threat. It's what gives your body the energy to get up and out of the way if there is a tiger there. We don't have many tigers, we have a lot of snakes, but we don't have those that we need to get rid of. And the short burst, the needing to get something done ASAP is the good stuff. That's why we have that stress. It's to remind us that we need to do this with some sort of urgency. The only problem is now we're starting to see okay, we might not be in an immediate threat, but some of the stress that we cause ourselves by all this negative self-talk of not being enough, not feeling like we're doing enough, and not feeling like anything that we're doing is actually good, that's what's causing us more stress. And it doesn't take much. It doesn't take an actual threat. It can take your body perceiving situations as threats to actually have that prolonged stress. And it is that prolonged stress with the adrenaline through your body, with all of the different hormonal responses that actually make your body start to break down. So stress is not inherently bad, but it's how we control it. It's how we actually control the thoughts that come in that will lead to some sort of outcome, whether it's good or whether it's bad. So if we harness it, it's just like anything, the bad that we get, if we harness it and we use it to our advantage, we use this to give us that push, that momentum to actually get into some sort of action, that's great. It's when we start to, we get that little bit of stress and then we ruminate, then we worry and we stress for a prolonged period of time. That's when it starts to become negative. And in that time, I don't know about any of you, but, the consequences of this, and if you've ever been around me, have you ever been with someone who's on their phone and they're very glued to their phone, and you could speak to them and they literally just like, it glances over them, they just kind of like, and then they don't remember anything that you say. I don't have to be on my phone sometimes if I'm worrying about something, if I have that negative self-talk, if I have that stuff in my head that's worrying me. I can just miss out on so many occasions because I'm so busy worried about that. I clock out and I'm in my head ruminating and just saying, oh, should I have done this? Should I have done that? And it might have been something that happened, it just happened. I just read an email. Or it could have been something that I remembered, like, oh, remember that time you said you too to the person who said, enjoy your movie? That sort of stuff. Enjoy your dinner? You too. Oh, gosh. And that can really play over in my head because, like I said, I have that vivid memory where I can see all that sort of stuff. Now, this is what happens. It takes me away from those moments. You get stressed. You get that stressed feeling of what I should have done or what I should be doing, and it takes you out of the moment. And I think there's a lot of moments that you do miss out on, but there's also a lot of relationships that you do miss out on because you had that moment and you are stressing and you're not living in the present. But also, it can lead us to choke. If you're thinking about the micro details of different situations, when you do get to that situation, if you're not in that flow state, if you're not just letting it happen and you're focusing on like the smallest little details to make sure that you get it correct, you can actually lead to choking. And that's what happens to a lot of the highest athletes, I guess. I'm not that I'd ever know, but a lot of them in the moment, if they're in flow and they're just going through their routine, they're going to be fine. But it's when you start to worry, it's when you start to have that stress or that negative self-talk that goes through your head of, what if I miss? What if I don't do this properly? And then you start focusing on that and then don't do it. So yes, it can cause us to choke, and those are the consequences of having, too much of that negative worry in your head. So what I want to do is help us harness that shit. I want us to make us, and put us in a position where we can actually get rid of that. And maybe it's not going to happen quickly, but when we start to notice the triggers of like, oh, there's that voice again, it's coming in, it's really annoying, and I'm going to listen to it, or I'm going to acknowledge that it's there, and I'm going to move on and get into some sort of flow and other stuff. So there's a couple of ways we can do this. Just remember that the negative chatter, sometimes we do need to listen to it. Sometimes it is telling us that we are doing something that is against our values, or we're doing something that doesn't quite align with who we want to be in those moments, or who we want to be in this phase of your life. And sometimes you need to reflect on that. Is that actually what your priority is for that time? So those are things that we need to think about there. And then do we have control of these thoughts? This is a good question. Most cases, no, because we have so many in our subconscious that the thoughts just come over us and we do think about them. But like you learn in meditation, a lot of it is just being able to be like, oh, I forgive that thought. I know that thought's there, but I'm not going to ruminate on it. I'm not going to let it destroy the rest of how our day goes. So you can actually start to package it a little bit and put it to where it needs to go. And, whether you use it to fuel yourself or whether you use it to be more aware of where your mind is at with different things. And you can transform that. It can be part of that transformative process of you being a bit more kind to yourself and having that compassion. So yes, I have these thoughts coming up. Maybe it's something that I haven't quite addressed yet. So then, put those steps in places to start addressing it. But at the same time, this might actually be because you have some sort of feeling that, you didn't do something correctly, and it is something that you can address for the next time. So you want to make sure that you're actually putting those steps in place so that you're taking action, or you're actually becoming, you're becoming better from the things that you're learning, because these things come up because they have some sort of discretion, or they have some sort of, there's an incongruence with who you say you are versus what's actually going on in your head and what your actions are doing. One thing that I did, that was actually it's one of the things that I learned from a counselor, and it's something that I've done a little bit more, and I noticed that I do it as I speak in the third person sometimes. I have that distant self-talk, and if you think about it, when you're giving yourself advice, you just tell yourself you're a piece of shit and like just get up and get over it. When you're talking to your friend, you're never like that. So if you just put yourself in the position of someone who, you can do this. You've got this. Come on, Troy. I don't know if you remember watching The Matrix, but Trinity in the very first couple of scenes, spoilers, it's a 1999 film, so if you're getting mad, then that's on you. She rolls down the stairs and she's like, get up, Trinity. Get up, Trinity. Get up. It's like me telling myself you can do this. Like when I wake up in the morning and I just feel shite, like I feel emotionally drained and I feel like I can't get through another day. all I do is like, come on, Troy, you got this. Like I literally just tell myself, I will myself to just get up and start moving, because I know that in the next 5 minutes, I'm actually going to be okay. I'm going to be moving. I'm going to show myself that I have the efficacy to be able to get up and get on with the day. So when we talk to others, we frame the problem and we find the supporting evidence that shows that you can actually get through this. When we talk to ourselves and we're just like, oh man, you're a piece of shit, you did this, you only focus on all of the things that you did wrong. Now imagine if you actually spoke to yourself like you would a good friend, and I've talked about this in the series that I did on loving yourself a little bit more, and that was at the start of last year, and I've been putting it into play, and look at me now, I've got a mullet. So I'm not saying that you're going to go and get a mullet, but you just get to a point where you have the self-compassion for yourself, which is awesome. And I think when we get stressed, we zone in right on the problem, and that exacerbates our insecurities, our stress, our worries, and all that sort of stuff. So thinking about it as if you're another friend and you're looking outside in on the project, on the program, you can actually be a bit more quantitative. You can be a bit more objective with what's actually happening. What did happen in this occasion, and what is it that you thought you got wrong. Most instances, if you're from the outside looking in, you can see that it's actually not as big as it was, because you haven't zoomed in on this problem. This is not the only thing that you're focusing on. You've actually got like a wider perspective of other things that are happening as well, that add and complete the picture and can make you see like, oh, okay, it wasn't as bad as I thought it was. And usually most instances, when you talk it out, you start to see that that's the case, that when you speak things out, you're like, oh, okay, so it wasn't as bad. I just catastrophized real bad. And another thing, and you would have heard me say it just before, but the temporal distancing. So actually in the time and space, starting to say like when you start freaking out about something. So when I felt shit in the morning, I get up and I'm just like, oh, I just ask myself, if I go back to sleep, if I just, neglect everything else, and, how would I actually feel in another hour? Would I feel better, or would I feel worse? And then I do the same. Like if I'm about to get up and go do something, how will I feel in an hour? How will I feel? Like how will I feel in this other time? Like, yes, you might be stressed right now, but really, is this a temporal thing? Is this only something that is existing in this space and time, in this context that you're in? But once you move out of it, you're probably going to be okay. So those are all things as well. It just reminds you that, feelings come and feelings dissipate if you just pay attention to them a little bit, and you just allow them to come and go. So yeah, just being a bit more aware. But what we have to do is actually be aware. Talk to yourself, feel yourself out. When I get this way, what's the best thing for me to be able to get out of it? But also remind yourself that you can be okay. You can, and this is something that I'm trying to do for myself, because I have been getting really down lately. But I've got things that I'm using all these different things to just kind of remind myself that fucking everything's great. Everything's so good. And I'm blessed. I'm blessed to have everything that I have, and I'm super privileged to actually have this platform to be able to talk with you through it. And I'm also super stoked for everyone who's supported me to actually get through this. I'm just someone who has issues. I'm just someone who has problems. And you listen in to see like, oh yeah, this boy's got issues, far out. And I don't know if you listen to it to take some sort of, to take tips away, or just literally because it's like Jerry Springer and you're just getting some free goss from me. But either way, thank you for riding with me. Really appreciate your time. So when certain things happen, you can feel trash. In summary, you can feel trash. And everyone feels trash during hard and stressful times. And I think once you accept that, and once you accept that, it is normal to feel shite. It is normal to feel shite when something really, really bad happens. That happens. And it's not your time to beat yourself up because you're feeling that way. What it is the time for you to acknowledge that you feel that way because something has genuinely hurt you. Something is genuinely worrying you about something. So, don't immediately try to push it aside. Try to feel those feelings. Try to write it out, and just try to see, why is it that came up that way. And being able to talk about it. We do long for social connection. So if you can find people to just talk through your emotions with, you like, am I being silly? Can I just vent for a bit? But please ask before you do it. It's not fun just dumping all the time. And yeah, it can lead to like kind of a stressful situation, especially if it's very one-sided. So yeah, make sure that you are checking in with the people that you're going to be talking with. But yeah, they can also offer you a perspective that you hadn't seen before, and then it will just remind you that that person on the outside can actually see the objective facts from everything that is actually happening. And being on the other side, just acknowledge the problem, but also Everything that happens, if something is really that bad, you might have a higher magnitude issue that comes up, and you just have to remind yourself that you're going to have to work. You're going to have to put in the steps to be able to get out of the other side. And that's the exciting part, because you get to see parts of yourself that maybe you've never explored before. But you also get to see, yourself come out on the other side. That's that temporal distancing, is just reminding yourself that it's going to be fine. If we keep putting in the steps, we can't just will things into existence. We can't just manifest things. That was with quotation marks for those who aren't watching, but you can't just manifest. Like, you have to start partaking in behaviors that are actually going to help you get there. So all I can do is share my experiences with you. And if this is helping, then I am so blessed to actually be that person who's allowing you to do that. But at the same time, please, 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 take care of yourselves, and make sure that if there's anything I can help you with in terms of content, reach out, and I'd love to share a little bit more about that stuff. So here we go. You're climbing a mountain. You want to be as successful as you can be. I don't think that makes sense, but anyway, let's roll with it. You want to be able to succeed as bad as you want to breathe, and as bad as you want to eat that ciabatta bun, and it's just fresh. It's like a donut that's been covered in your favorite sprinkle. But at the same time, you cannot have that unless you allow yourself the freedom, the compassion to actually go and have it without having that guilt, without having that feeling inside of you that, you piece of ass, you shouldn't have eaten that donut. You don't deserve it. What have you done today to get that? Have you brushed your teeth and flossed? Which you should do at least twice a day, according to my dentist, who I've paid their trip back and forth to the Bahamas at least 3 times for getting my teeth done. But that's besides the point. What I'm trying to remind you is that you can really do whatever you want to do, right? There are people who are going to tell you, no, don't get a mullet. And then you go get a mullet and you feel very, very free. So all I'm saying is, do what makes you happy. Do what makes you feel like you're free. Do what makes you feel like a child again. And remember, that voice in your head, if you put a little accent on it and you make it speak kindly to you, you're actually going to have a really, really good relationship with yourself. That's another episode of the Sick As Podcast. I hope you enjoy your week. I love you all, and thank you for supporting me. You're real.